an illustrator. After she graduated in social communication at UNB in Brasilia in 2000, she did a postgraduate work in graphic design at CENEC, São Paulo in 2002. She also received a MA in New Media Arts and CAD, and this was in UK in 2003. And moreover, one in aesthetic and art history in USP in São Paulo in 2012. She defended a dissertation entitled Through Realism and What Alice Would Dare. She finished her postgraduate studies in children's literature at Casa Tombada in São Paulo. In 2010, Adriana founded the Lewis Carroll Society of Brazil, where she produced Alice Delic art. She offers workshops and lectures. She promotes cultural events and blogs. She has contributed significant articles about Lewis Carroll in magazines, journals, and books. She illustrated Brazilian editions of Alice books, including co-translating and designing a Jabuti Prize-winning Alice Adventures Underground. And at the end, she wrote and illustrated Alice and Seven Keys. A warm welcome to all of us, Adriana.
The title of Adriana's contribution for today is Alice's Friendships at the Yellow Woodpecker Ranch. And we thank Adriana also because she is the author of the beautiful picture for our panel, Alice's Friendship Over the World and in Naples. Thank you so much.
Can I say just a word to thank?
Yeah.
I want to thank Stefania Tondo, a very beautiful Alice friend, Ilaria, Emilia, Mark, and Gabrielle, who will be with me this afternoon. That for me is in the morning, and the Universidade de Estudos for Ursula Bonicasa for this beautiful event full of friends, and I hope you enjoy my talk. Thank you very much.
You can start, Adriana, your presentation, and if you want, stay with us and wait. We will having Mark and Ilaria after you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are you putting on the video? Do you want us to do? Okay, we'll make, okay, video. Is it possible? Just a few minutes.
Hello, dear all. Alice-delic greetings. My name is Adriana Peliano. I am a Brazilian visual artist, graphic designer, researcher, and founder of the Lewis Carroll Society of Brazil. Thank you very much for your enigmatic presence today in this Alice-delic event. Well, I will share my screen. How Alice arrived at the Yellow Woodpecker Ranch and became friend of the ragdoll Emilia and the girl with the little snub nose, Lucia. The work of Brazilian writer Monteiro Lobato, born in 1882 and died in 1948, is a treasure of Brazilian literature for children in the 20th century. Within a broad literary and editorial production, his children's work consists of more than 30 books that present the adventures of Narizinho, a girl called Lucia, also known as Little Snubnose, the boy Pedrinho, the female rag doll Emília, the male corn doll Visconde, the cook Aunt Nastácia, and the grandmother Dona Benta, among other residents of Yellow Woodpecker Ranch who encanted generations and his guests. In Lobato children's work, many books present adventures experienced by the characters of Yellow Woodpecker Ranch as they travel through time, mythology, adventures through imaginary world, and intertextual encounters with various characters from literature, folklore, mythology, cinema, and cartoons, creating multiple new friendships. Lobato also translated and adapted several literary classics for Brazilian children, with emphasis on works that challenge and feed imagination, fantasy, and dreams, such as Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, Fairy Tales, The Arabian Nights, Gulliver's Travels, Peter Pan, Pinocchio, among others. In this sense, the author invested for decades in a project to multiply educated, critical, and creative readers. Many of these works feature characters who crossed the range gate or were visited by woodpeckers, thanks to the magic of make-believe and power of Pirlim Pim Pim, the most magical powder that fairy tales invented, used to travel to realms of the imagination inspired by Peter Pan and the work of J.M. Barrie. Inspired by northern Brazilian popular culture, the artist Jo Oliveira poetically illustrated the arrival of the characters from the world of wonders in the Yellow Woodpecker Ranch, as in this is the picture. In this picture, Emília talks to Alice, holding the Cheshire Cat, while the Viscount, a corn cob in a top hat, faces the White Rabbit in a coat and pocket watch. Aunt Nastácia waits the arrival of characters from other kingdoms, such as fairy tales. You can see here Snow White and Little Red Riding Hood, Arabian Nights, and the classics as Don Quixote, to name a few, as the limit of the visitors and the road go beyond the margins of this drawing. In Adventures of Little Nose, it was Dona Carochinha, a cockroach storyteller and guardian of wonderful tales, who said that many characters were tired of always living the same stories. They ended up at Yellow Woodpecker Ranch to dare new adventures and reinvent themselves. In this contest, Lewis Carroll's Alice also arrived in Brazil through the writer Monteiro Lobato. It was he who made the first Brazilian translation and adaptation of Alice in Wonderland with illustrations by Ada Bowley in 1931. In the same year, he published his Adventures of Little Snub-Nose. 2 years later would be the turn of Through the Looking Glass in 1933, with illustrations by John Tenniel, to also be published in Brazil with adaptation by Lobato. In addition to teaching Alice to speak Portuguese, Lobato invited her to visit Yellow Woodpecker Ranch in 4 of his stories, escaping Carroll's books to inhabit the world of wonders that Lobato mapped out for our childhood. In the curious preface of this adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, Lobato says that Brazilian children would read Alice's Adventures at the request of Lucia, the girl with the upturned nose or snub nose, then 7 years old. The girl insisted so much on reading Alice in Portuguese, said the author, that since she didn't know English, that there was no remedy, despite it being, as he said, an untranslatable work. In fact, he does not translate several puns, parodies, and language games from Carroll's work. In general, he makes it simpler, taking risks of diluting the power of artistic creation to achieve identification with a wider children's audience of his time, also following his commercial feeling. Lobato adapts cultural traits from Alice's Adventures to bring them closer to the Brazilian of his time. A few years later, in the book Memories of Emilia, many English characters go to visit Yellow Woodpecker Ranch. Alice arrives with the ship Wonderland with Peter Pan and the historical Admiral William Brown, as you can see in the picture, as well as several children, English children, to see a little angel brought by Emilia from her journey to Sky, a book by Lobato published in 1932. Of all the visitors, Alice is the one who questioned the angel, as you can see in the left picture. But she just wants to hear about life in heaven and gets into an argument with Emilia, claiming that that place didn't seem worthy of a little angel. If he was taken to London, the snobbish English girl thinks, the angel would receive a crystal palace full of clouds of very fluffy and soft gold. An idea very far from the old house with crooked trees and piglet peering in the distance, as she described the Yellow Woodpecker Range. But Lobatian Alice is little by little breaking the barrier between cultures, landing in the daily life of the range crossed by the magic of make-believe, making friends, and becoming acquainted with peculiar fruits like oranges, but also pitangas and jabuticabas that make the woodpeckers happy. What a wonderful thing, muttered Alice, to eat such a precious orange next to a little angel from heaven who tells you things from there. I'm changing my mind, Emilia. I'm thinking that this range of Dona Benta is even more delicious than our Kensington Gardens in London. Later, Emilia eats Aunt Nastasia's original cakes and likes them so much that she asks for the receipt. Upon seeing her, Aunt Nastasia is surprised and asks if the English girl really speaks Portuguese. And Emilia confirms, with her logic, with some affinities with nonsense. Yes, because Alice has already been translated into Portuguese. On the back cover created by the illustrator Belmonte for the first edition of Memories of Emilia, we can see Alice wearing a blue dress with white flowers, just like Alice on the cover of the edition translated by Lobato, on the left. He maintained the same connection in the pictures inside the book, since Alice, illustrated by A.L. Bowley, became, with Lobato, the characters most publicized have reference for readers in the Brazil at that time, in the 30s and 40s. An illustrator from golden age of children's books, Alda Bowley created dozens of sweet children's pictures books for the London company Raphael Tuck Sons, which specializes in promoting trading cards, collectible postcards, and greeting cards. The company also published books for children with playful and seductive graphic solutions. By the end of the decade, at least 3 different versions of Alice in Wonderland, including arts by Ada Bowley, were edited by Raphael Tuck with additional and charming puzzles, like this one. One of the versions had 6 colored engravings and 70 black and white drawings for the basic edition, plus a double page in pop-up formats that included all the characters from the work in a single scene. Lobato was an editor who greatly innovated in the graphic design of children's books to modernize them and make them more attractive. We know that he paid special attention to the materiality of the book. It's interesting to note that Alice books illustrated by Bowley present in different ways in illustrations of graphic format the suggestion that characters can leave the book and gain a life of their own. The pop-up version comes with the text, "Come to life," printed in the cover. The book may give in Lobato the physical experience of opening a book and seeing Alice's characters jump out of the pages. In Adventures of Little Nose, published in the same year, Lobato promoted a rebellion in World of Wonders. The opening image shows the work as a fantastic metalinguistic pop-up in which the characters take on a life of their own and escape from the physical book, mirror meta-language and intertextual procedures in the narrative. An enigmatic mise en abîme is created with stories within stories in a labyrinth of intertextual crossings. In the book Adventures of Little Snub-Nose, it seems to have been Peter Pan himself who gave them the map of the World of Wonders to the woodpecker habitants to travel in imagination. On that map, Yellow Woodpecker Ranch coexists with literary kingdoms presented by grandmother Dona Benta in her readings to the inhabitants of the ranch. Along the adventures, the woodpeckers, as they are called, interact with both the characters of those books and even some writers that encounter in the fictional universe. The map of World of Wonders was illustrated by different artists. A version of the map would illustrate the opening of each volume in the collection of Lobato's children's works published by Brasiliense in the mid-40s, 1940s onwards, illustrated by André Leblanc. This picture I'm showing. One of the criteria for choosing the lands present on the maps is that they created a bridge between the character Dona Benta Library, who read and told story to the woodpeckers, and the library of Lobato readers, who in the coming years would have access to the same works translated by the author himself in an intertextual and marketing project. The map was a travel guide for woodpecker and acquisitions and readings for children, Brazilian children. Island of Robinson Crusoe, Castle of Munchausen Baron, Neverland, Castle of Sleeping Beauty are among the lands. Alice also has a house in Wonderland on this map. The illustrator included a huge chessboard next to Wonderland, the quintessential setting for Alice's adventures through the looking glass. If the characters of the World of Wonders were dissatisfied with always living the same adventures, when they come to ranch in the book The Yellow Woodpecker from 1939, they reinvent their lives. The characters from the World of Wonders, World of Fable, or Kingdom of Fairies move to a piece of land neighboring the ranch, with Dona Benta condition that they do not jump the fence. The conditions were accepted and the change began, but they weren't coming for a walk. No, they came with weapons and luggage, with castles and palaces to live there all their lives. Alice moves there, this time with the whole gang, Tweedledee did Tweedledum, the Cheshire Cat, the White Rabbit, the Mock Turtle, etc. It's interesting to note that the whole gang includes both characters from Wonderland and Looking Glass, justifying the two appearing together on the map. Friendships and enmities of all kinds arise between characters from different works of literature and mythology while living in the ranch. In the story, the fairies is apparently the last time that Alice goes to the ranch. While the woodpeckers are fast asleep, a party thrown by Snow White for Pussy in Boots, like in a pre-Shrek era. Everyone, including Alice, arrives on flying carpets worthy of the Arabian Nights, crossing the skies of the world of wonders. But the children don't know. At the end, Little Nose comments that she's sad, thinking that her enchanted friends have forgotten about the ranch. The story opens windows into the imagination with a phrase rich in possibilities. That is, so many things happen in the yellow woodpecker range that are not told in the books. What are the connections between Little Noses and Alice's adventures? Alice and Little Nose, whose name was Lucia, were both 7 years old, and their names are almost anagrams of each other. One lived in England, the other in Brazil. In the beginning of their stories, they were both on the edge of rivers. Alice with her sister, Little Nose with her dolls, Emilia. Alice wanted to collect daisies for a garland. Little Nose saw pictures among the clouds. Alice was amazed by the white rabbit with a vast pocket watch and umbrella. Little Nose received a visit from a beetle and a prince, who in turn was a fish in red coat and umbrella in his hand. Burning with curiosity, Alice ran after the rabbit and jumped into his hole. Walking like what old friends, Little Nose and the prince arrived at a certain cave that had never seen before, and the girl was scared. The landscape was different. Alice arrived at a room full of doors, where she found a small door that led to the most beautiful garden she had ever seen. Little Nose crossed the cave and came across a coral gate so beautiful it seemed like a dream. Alice ended up in Wonderland, an underground kingdom. Little Nose arrived in the kingdom of clear waters, a wonder water kingdom. After that point, the stories followed different paths. Still, Lobato used many of Alice's ingredients in his stories. Alice in Wonderland was Little Nose's favorite book. In the adventures of Alice and Little Nose, the limits between reality, fantasy, imagination, and dreams are challenged. In Lobato's works, they become friends, creating a bridge between modern Brazilian children's literature and the world of wonders in a base of interaction and friendship. This picture was photographed by Gui Gomes of my assemblage, showing the characters coming out from Lewis Carroll works into Monteiro Lobato. This is the left is an Italian adaptation of Monteiro Lobato, The Girl of the Snub Nose. The book is called Nascino from 1954, with clear connections with Alice in Wonderland, the beginning of Alice in Wonderland. And these are the covers of Nursery Alice by Emily Gertrude Thompson. And here is the first edition of the adventures of Little Snub Nose. And we know that the character, in fact, was brunette, but in this cover, I can see a clear reference to Nursery Alice with the blondie girl sleeping and the characters of her dreams around her, blurring the boundaries between reality and dream. Here are some of the books quoted, and my contacts, my email, the site of Lewis Carroll Society of Brazil, and contacts of my profile in Instagram. Thank you very much. This video was recorded, but I am available today with you to answer any questions. Thank you very much. All the best. Alice, greetings.
Thank you, Adriana. It's Ilaria speaking. This was really amazing, and I find another books to buy because I didn't know this story, this Brazilian book, and now I want it.
Okay, I can help you with that.
Thank you, Adriana.
Okay. Adriana, you are a treasure, really, for your bibliography, your art, your everything. I really thank you. And now it is Mark Bernstein's turn. So we can connect with Mark.
Non c'è. Ah, il video. Il video di Mark.
In meanwhile, I'd like to introduce you. I'd like to introduce Mark Bernstein for you. Mark Bernstein is the president emeritus of the Lewis Carroll Society in North America. He's the editor of its magazine King Letter. In other words, he inherited the world-class collection from his father. This is a family tradition. And moreover, he has edited and contributed to more than 20 books on Lewis Carroll, including the updating, the editing, and the art directing of the newest annotated Alice. So meanwhile, a title could be Caroling, full stop, alive. So let's give a warm welcome to Mark Bernstein, which will be with us through a video.
Is coming. Just few seconds. And I like Mark Bernstein's title because this morning we talked about irony and the way you can, in a way, invent words. Carroll is Lewis Carroll, and as a verb, it is an action, a life attitude. And in the case of Mark Bernstein, this is true. So we will listen to him.
Ciao Napoli, grazie alle mie amiche Stefania e Ilaria per avermi invitato. Mi dispiace, but as you can tell from my horrible accent, I don't really speak Italian, so must switch to English. Here we go. I'm very excited to be part of this Christmas Wonders conference and truly wish I could be there in person, as I do love Italy. On behalf of the Lewis Carroll Society of North America and all the other Lewis Carroll societies around the world, may I just say, E viva la Lewis Carroll Society d'Italia. Anyway, I was asked to talk a bit about myself and my relationship with the works of a certain English Don who passed away in 1898. Well, that story begins in 1934, when my father fell in love with his first grade teacher, Kathleen Sherman, who happened to be an actress also portraying Alice, and somehow the White Rabbit, in a local theater company, and he fell in love with the Alice books around the same time. He wrote about them in college, as I was to do many years later. I cannot remember when I first read it or when it was read to me, but I distinctly remember my dad bringing home a copy of the annotated Alice when it first came out, and which I promptly devoured. As I was 10 years old, I probably missed some of the subtleties, and I certainly never dreamed that one day I would be updating a new edition. Well, it's possible that some of you might know the reputation of the University of California at Santa Cruz had in the 60s, which was what you think it was. My cosmic epiphany came as I put on the recording of the Alice books, read by Cyril Richard, accompanied by the New York Woodwind Quintet, and then dropped some acid. Took some LSD. The records were a perfect accompaniment to a consciousness-raising experience, and it seared itself directly into my soul. I soon wrote a paper based on my revelations in terms of Zen Buddhism, which expanded into a thesis and has proven a very popular article on the web, even after all these years. Well, in the mid-1970s, a few years after I graduated, my dad, who loved to travel, thought he'd buy a copy of Alice in the language of every country he visited, starting with his Portuguese version when he was in Lisbon. But when you have collector's blood, things just grow. He was a physician, and his patients would bring him copies of Alice in the languages of countries they visited. Soon he was hooked and started frequenting antiquarian bookshops and book fairs and the like, which is how one got books before the internet came along. When he gifted the collection to me around the millennium, it was around 2,000 books. Today, it's over 4,200. My dad was a member of the Lewis Carroll Society of the UK almost since its founding, and of course joined the LCSNA, that's the Lewis Carroll Society of North America, shortly after it was formed in 1974, and became its president from 1983 to 1984. But all the meetings of the society were held on the East Coast, and we thought that we on the West Coast should also have meetings. So he and I formed the West Coast chapter of the society, and it thrived from 1979 to 1987. Around this time, an article about my dad and his collection appeared in a local newspaper. It was read by, among others, yes, Kathleen Sherman, his crush of a century before. She called him the next day saying, "Sandor, this is the White Rabbit," and came over to see his collection and contribute some memorabilia to it. At one of our meetings in 1995, I was asked to edit the Night Letter, magazine of our society. Well, I've taken it from an 8-page newsletter to its present form, which is a 64 to 80-page magazine. It comes out twice a year, 62 issues to date. That assignment also taught me editing, which I made my second career. And I've gone to edit or contribute to more than 20 books on Carroll, with no end in sight. I'm of course proudest that I was asked by Martin Gardner's son Jim to update, edit, and art direct the new edition of the annotated Alice. I was told that I could add or revise about 100 annotations and was asked to provide 100 new illustrations, new to the book, not new to the world, and was given a minuscule budget of $1,000. That's 913 euros. Almost all of that went to the people in charge of Salvador Dali's rights, most of the rest to acquiring just one Beatrix Potter illustration. But fortunately, the rest were either in public domain or I could get permission from the artist, as it's rather prestigious to get something in the annotated Alice. Another daunting part of the task is that Alice is the most widely illustrated novel in the world. Well, I did add one drawing that was completely original to the book. Speaking of Dali, as you know, he did a deluxe edition in 1969, and there has never been a trade edition. It was almost a ritual with me that whenever I met with a new publisher in my business, I would pitch it, saying, there were dozens of new illustrators of Alice every year that no one has heard of, but this was Dali! And after about 20 years of pleading, someone heard me, namely Princeton University Press. They asked me to edit it, write the introduction, supply the text and images, and so on. They took care of paying the rights fee. And guess what? It's been their biggest seller by a very large factor. It's now in its 6th printing. And me, yes, I still collect. The advent of the internet has been both a blessing and a curse. The blessing is, of course, how easy it is to acquire books from other lands and other languages, but that's also part of its curse. Where am I going to put all of them? Another part of the curse is that in the old days, receiving a letter, say, from Bulgaria, saying that a new edition was available, and then tracking it down and getting it in the mail months later was a great thrill. Today's 3 mouse clicks just isn't the same. Although I've collected a wide range of publications, my favorite focuses are on new illustrators and new translations, especially into languages I don't presently have. I have 154 as we speak, including a translation into emojis. And I also particularly love comic book adaptations. Well, let me show you around the collection a bit, highlighting a few special objects. I collect, among other things, original art from Alice books, as well as a few posters and prints. And yes, that is a Jabberwocky. This case contains, among other things, Alice Little's own flutina, kind of accordion, which we like to fantasize that she played for Lewis Carroll, and Lewis Carroll's own cribbage board. Here's some papier-mâché figures my dad had made, one of a kind. Excuse me. But it's not just a collection, it's a research library. Some collectors are what I call the white gloves type. That is, you can only handle their treasures with white gloves, and they would never consider lending any of them. Well, I prefer to share. I'm always up for researching, scanning, and so on to help Carolians worldwide. Well, just for fun and talking about my life, I want to mention a few really crazy coincidences. First, at talks, I have occasionally been asked, was there a Mrs. Lewis Carroll? Well, yes, there was. And furthermore, it's my mother. I've mentioned that my dad was a serious Carroll collector, but my mom managed to do him one better, as her 3rd and last husband was named, I swear, I promise, Lewis Carroll English. During many of those years, my supervisor at work was Mrs. Little. Sadly, her first name was Katie rather than Alice. She wasn't a relation. Still. And then, as many of you know, Alice Little Hargraves visited the United States in Carroll's birth centennial year of 1932 to be honored at an event at Columbia University. A young student named Herb Arend was there, and he decided on a whim that he would stand in a reception line so he could shake her hand, which he did. Well, exactly 50 years later, Herb came to a meeting of our society, and I got to shake his hand, very ceremonious. That means I am only 1 degree of separation from Alice herself. In 2006, when we learned that a daughter would be born to us, I, of course, wanted to name her Alice, Alice, Alicia, Lily, Louise, Carol, or something along those lines. My wife was having none of it, saying, I have enough of your mistress at home. So I promised not to suggest a Carol-related name. She went to the hospital with a list of mutually acceptable names, but when the baby was born, none of them really fit. A day or so later, she woke up to the name Sonia on the whiteboard in her hospital room, presumably the name of the nurse on duty, handwriting on the wall. She called me to ask what I thought. Well, being of half Russian descent, I said I loved it, and so she was named. When I emailed the world the day later, one of my first replies was from a Ukrainian friend who said, You do know that Sonia means dormouse in Russian, yes? But it goes on. A few years later, I happened to see a footnote referencing the first translation of Alice into Russia, Sonia в царстве дива, Sonia in the Kingdom of Wonder. I swear I didn't know this. Unfortunately, my wife is still speaking to me. Well, I tracked down the only copy of it in the free world, had it digitized and published it for the LCSNA. It gets worse. Here's my daughter at age 7, along with a photo of Miss Little. I am presently semi-retired. Carol still takes up most of my days. My wife is pretty supportive. I sometimes have to remind her that some husbands have worse hobbies than collecting children's books. This conference's theme is friendships, and some of my dearest friends are people I have met through the Carol world. Some I have never met in person, but I'm still very close to. The LCSNA has had more than 90 in-person meetings over the years, and I've attended many. We've also done 5 online ones. I'm very happy that the Lewis Carroll Society of Italy is alive and hope that someday they will have an in-person gathering so I have an excuse to come to one of my favorite countries. Well, this is the time for me to say impenetrability. What do I mean by that? Now you talk like a sensible child, said Humpty Dumpty, looking very much pleased. I meant by impenetrability that we've had enough of that subject, and it would be just as well if you'd mention what you mean to do next, as I suppose you don't mean to stop here the rest of your life. Grazie mille, farei una bella conferenza. Ciao. Ciao Napoli. Grazie alle mie amiche Stefania e Ilaria per avermi invitato. Mi dispiace, but as you can tell from my horrible accent, I don't really speak it.
Sì. Now, up to us, let's give a very warm and please welcome to Ilaria Cremaschini. Ilaria is the founder in Milan of the Carl Lewis Society d'Italia, and her contribution's name is From the Addiction to the Society, dall'ossessione all'associazione.
Io vi parlerò in italiano, ma le slide saranno in inglese. Così saranno comprensibili ad Adriana e a chi ci segue dall'estero. E a Mark. Come nasce una society e soprattutto come si trasforma una mania ossessiva in qualcosa di culturale. Ebbene, partiamo da chi sono io. Io mi chiamo Ilaria Cremaschini, come vi hanno detto, ma ho anche un secondo nome che è Alice Chimera. Allora, Ilaria è la parte di me che lavora in una società di spedizioni. Alice invece è il mio lato creativo, appunto sono una scrittrice, sono una blogger e ovviamente anche una collezionista di libri, accumulatrice seriale. La Society è il punto di unione di queste due figure, infatti per la prima volta in pubblico mi presento come Ilaria e non come Alice, è una cosa molto rara. Ma come sono arrivata a tutto ciò? Bene, io quando ero piccola non leggevo libri, per me i libri erano una cosa impossibile, non ero in grado di leggerli, ad alta voce poi neanche a parlarne, eppure a scuola mi dicevano che io il potenziale ce l'avevo, io potevo essere meglio, potevo prendere bei voti, dovevo solo impegnarmi, questa è la risposta tipica dell'insegnante medio. Beh, non si erano accorti che ero dislessica, quindi cosa è successo? Che se non se ne volevano occupare gli adulti, me ne sono occupata io. E come? Con i libri. Quei nemici che io vedevo sono diventati i miei migliori amici. Questo è il primissimo libro che ho letto. Ho scelto qualcosa di leggero, semplice, easy, easy. Era quello che andava di moda, stiamo parlando dei primi anni 2000, stavano uscendo i film, quindi quello c'era, lo leggevano tutti, perché non io? Cioè, proviamo da quello che leggono tutti. Pensavo fosse roba semplice. E invece, ovviamente, è stata la prima di tante altre letture che hanno segnato la mia adolescenza. E appunto è venuto Il Signore degli Anelli, Il Conte di Montecristo, che è una mia crush adolescenziale, ma soprattutto Alice. E vi chiederete perché Alice? Cioè, nel senso, c'era quel figo del Conte di Montecristo, Frodo e Legolas, tanta roba, eh? Quindi cerchiamo di capire perché proprio Alice. Ebbene, tra tutti i libri che io in quel momento stavo iniziando a divorare, perché sono proprio passata dal non leggevo niente al leggo anche quello che c'è scritto sulla carta igienica ancora un po', mi sono resa conto che Alice è stato il primo libro che mi ha fatto capire quanto una storia non è solo una storia, ma può avere molteplici letture. È stato il primo libro che me l'ha fatto capire. E io ne sono rimasta avvinta, ne sono rimasta innamorata. E da allora mi sono sempre domandata, perché comunque Alice è in molteplici forme, quante Alice esistono nel mondo, in Italia? Questa per esempio è una delle ultimissime edizioni della Giunti, illustrata. Ma se andiamo indietro nel tempo, questa per esempio è un'edizione del 1934 giapponese, e non è neanche la prima in Giappone. Se restiamo in Europa, questa è l'ultima edizione neerlandese, l'ho detto giusto? Ma non dimentichiamo la Disney, quest'anno la Disney fa 100 anni con il suo studio, si è proposto una nuova edizione di Alice, non solo questa, c'è anche un'altra versione, quindi ne esistono due. Ma perché tenere fuori il mondo anche del pop, dei fumetti? Questo è un riadattamento molto alternativo di Alice, che è uscito proprio il mese scorso a Lucca. Questo è l'ultimissimo Alice italiano, appena arrivato. Ma si potrebbe andare all'infinito, perché si può parlare anche di arte, e quindi abbiamo anche artisti come Stefano Bessoni, che è il nostro Tim Burton italiano, che ha avuto la possibilità di esporre la Mole Antonelliana quest'anno. E poi le pubblicazioni di Carroll, perché alla fine Alice è anche Lewis Carroll in qualche modo. Se lui non avesse incontrato quella bambina, se non avesse raccontato a lei e alle sue sorelle questa avventura, noi non avremmo nulla. Quindi questa è una delle ultimissime pubblicazioni dedicate alle lettere di Lewis Carroll. E questo, che vi mostro ora, è una delle ultime edizioni illustrate italiane artistiche. Questo è sia un libro che un catalogo d'arte di un bravissimo illustratore italiano che è Francesco Corli. Quindi alla fine è impossibile, voi direte, contare quante Alice, quante versioni di Alice ci sono, è impossibile. Ma io voglio quel numero. Punto. E quindi nel 2010, così, presa da una mania ossessiva e compulsiva, ho appunto iniziato a collezionare libri di Alice e ovviamente legati a Lewis Carroll, quindi anche tutte le opere minori che magari si conoscono meno. E quindi l'ho fatta diventare una missione, li voglio tutti, come i Pokémon. Attualmente a casa mia ho un magazzino di libri, scatole di libri, e sto cercando di contare, perché mi sono resa conto che forse ne ho un po' tanti, e quindi sono arrivata a un conto approssimativo di una piccola parte della collezione, che è intorno ai 500 volumi, ma il conto è in evoluzione, cioè non è questo il numero finale, siamo ancora lontani. Giusto per prepararvi psicologicamente. Ed è nato il progetto Chimera in Wonderland. Perché? Perché durante la pandemia molte persone sono arrivate sul profilo, diciamo, da blogger Alice Chimera, e hanno notato che tra i vari libri che sponsorizzavo, ma di cui comunque parlavo anche per passione, c'erano appunto libri di Alice. Una persona in particolare, una collezionista pazza, squinternata come me, che si chiama Yvonne, mi disse: ma perché non apri un canale solo per i libri di Alice? E io effettivamente mi sono detta: ma cavolo, effettivamente io ho delle edizioni molto particolari, perché non far vedere la mia collezione? Quindi inizialmente è iniziata così, con una semplice condivisione online di post in cui mostravo la copertina del libro e qualche immagine selezionata all'interno, anche perché poi le gallery di Instagram, quelle sono 10 immagini, ti permette di far vedere. E così io sono entrata in contatto con le societies del mondo, con Adriana, che è stata una delle prime societies con cui sono entrata in contatto, quella brasiliana, e poi ovviamente con Mark. E mi sono resa conto che qui in Italia non avevamo una society, nessuno ci aveva mai pensato, o meglio, nessuno si era mai messo a lo faccio io, facciamo. E quindi essenzialmente quest'anno con un gruppo di amici ci siamo detti: facciamolo noi, buttiamoci. E quello che vogliamo fare è riuscire a parlare di Alice e di Lewis Carroll in Italia, in italiano, perché molte opere sono a volte introvabili nella nostra lingua, e soprattutto vogliamo dare spazio ad eventi e a tutti coloro che in qualche modo sono rimasti toccati da Lewis Carroll. Quindi cosa fare adesso? La prima cosa che abbiamo deciso di fare, e questa la vedete in anteprima perché l'hanno vista solo i collaboratori stretti e chi ha lavorato alla rivista, è appunto creare una rivista italiana dedicata a Lewis Carroll e ad Alice, che si chiama appunto Cronache Carrolliane, è una rivista associativa, quindi i soci la ricevono direttamente a casa, se no sarà anche disponibile su Amazon in 2 formati, in cartaceo, così come illustrato, colorato, tutto bello, e la versione ovviamente ebook, che sarà un pochettino più ristretta, perché comunque l'ebook non ci permette di fare grafiche molto elaborate. E ovviamente la mia collezione verrà resa disponibile per il momento ai soci, in modo che tutti possano utilizzare quello che io ho collezionato in questi 13 anni per sé, perché, ripeto, molto spesso si tratta di volumi introvabili, di volumi anche a volte sconosciuti, perché nessuno in Italia attualmente si è messo a fare una catalogazione completa dei lavori di Lewis Carroll. Non è un autore italiano, quindi la risposta che potrebbe arrivare è: perché farlo? Semplicemente la storia di Alice in Italia è una delle più particolari. E allora perché non raccontarla? E noi siamo qua anche per fare questo. E allora io vi ringrazio, è stato bellissimo. Ci trovate sia sul sito internet e, siccome siamo giovani social, ci trovate su Facebook, su Instagram, sull'ex Twitter che adesso si chiama X, e ovviamente siamo a disposizione per dialogare con tutti. Quindi grazie ancora per essere qua e siamo a vostra disposizione.
È vero, molti ci hanno sempre pensato di fare una Lewis Carroll Society italiana, ma non hanno avuto la forza e il coraggio. Io lo sognavo, ma non potevo. Ti ammiro. Cioè, è proprio I admire you, you are so brave, Ilaria. Ma ci vuole proprio perché è un patrimonio culturale mondiale che trova una giusta collocazione e traggo un po' le conclusioni sulle amicizie con Alice e mi piace partire innanzitutto da Adriana Peliano, che ci ha fatto questa bellissima immagine per la locandina, in cui ci ha rappresentato i personaggi nelle varie anche edizioni, illustrazioni a tavolino che condividono un'amicizia. E la citazione. But I don't want to go among mad people, Alice remarked. Oh, you can't help that, said the cat. We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad. How do you know I'm mad? Said Alice. You must be, said the cat, or you wouldn't have come here. Ma io non voglio andare fra i matti, osservò Alice. Beh, non hai altra scelta, disse il gatto. Qui siamo tutti matti. Io sono matto, tu sei matta. Come lo sai che sono matta? Disse Alice. Per forza, disse il gatto, altrimenti non saresti venuta qui. Allora, questa amicizia folle che tutti qui oggi abbiamo nominato spesso questa parola amicizia. E in fondo è stato per Alice che io ho conosciuto Ilaria. Ero stata segnalata come una matta studiosa di Alice a Napoli dagli americani, i quali io li avevo conosciuti in occasione dei 150 anni di Alice, della pubblicazione di Alice nel 2015, e a presentare l'edizione napoletana che ebbe un premio, un Award of Excellence. Ero in una panel con Adriana Peliano e Mark Burstein che faceva da chairing. C'ero arrivata lì, l'edizione napoletana fu segnalata da un'altra italiana che raccoglieva edizioni in tutte le lingue di Alice e segnalò in America l'edizione napoletana. Tutto questo per dire che si arriva alla composizione di questi matti che si mettono tutti insieme, perché se non sei nello spirito di un testo come Alice's Adventures in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass e nella poetica di un autore così speciale e particolare, o ci entri o non ci entri, quindi devi avere comunque una vena di follia, nel senso non medico e medicalizzante della parola. Mi piace immaginarla come una particolare sensibilità, un gusto estetico, comunque qualche cosa succede perché non esci più e io poi ho messo insieme tutta questa passione, questo circolo di amici che sono i condivisori degli studi non solo su Alice e Lewis Carroll, ma anche su Children's Literature, per cui insieme a il professore Peter Hunt, Laura Tosi e tanti altri professori che in questi 10 anni dall'Inghilterra sono intervenuti in questo convegno natalizio, abbiamo condiviso discorsi su Wonderland che in 10 anni non si sono ancora esauriti. Noi finché ci saremo ne faremo uno all'anno, sempre diverso, sempre speciale. Che cosa è venuto fuori allora? Che studiare Alice e Lewis Carroll, ma questo voglio dire succede anche quando hai un innamoramento per un filosofo, uno storico, insomma, quando si sviluppa una passione, si genera un legame e un sentimento di connessione speciale, personale, la membership alle societies, la condivisione nella ricerca, un aggiornamento continuo che a un certo punto con Alice lo abbiamo visto anche con gli studenti durante questi 10 anni, ai quali io però ce ne devo aggiungere tanti altri prima del Christmas Wonders. Si è sempre visto che anche uno studio intertestuale, transtestuale, ipertestuale, non si capisce più niente a un certo punto dove andare a mettere le mani, ma quando si comincia a studiare il libro di origine, il source book, cominci un viaggio verso un mondo di fan, di un qualcosa di talmente fine che viene facile definire amicizia, friendship, si genera un senso di appartenenza, di comunità e quando ti metti a riflettere su questo capisci che tutto questo è legato a un testo di partenza. Alice è diventato come testo di partenza non è più indipendente, cioè non rimane uguale, cambia sempre e sempre riusi e nuovi consumi non lo rendono più autonomo, ma eteronomo, mentre un'opera letteraria trascende qualsiasi interpretazione individuale, esiste solo attraverso le varie concretizations, le varie forme in cui si concretizza, conta la somma implicita delle molteplici versioni e concretizzazioni di esso, l'abbiamo visto anche attraverso questi interventi di Bernstein, di Peliano e di Ilaria Cremastini, quanti testi, quante copertine, quanti formati, quanti adattamenti. Abbiamo proprio una tradizione di transformational analysis. Il tracer test, il testo di partenza, è la ragione di essere, però poi noi non riusciamo veramente a fare un resoconto, anche Ilaria lo ha detto prima, non si può fare un resoconto accurato dei derivati di Alice, perché è un continuo flusso, movimento editoriale, ma non solo nel senso di libro stampato. Nel XXI secolo oramai leggere, scrivere, riimmaginare Alice non è solo l'interazione di un cervello individuale con due libri. Alice in Wonderland oggi è un corpus enorme, mondiale, soggetto a nuovi utilizzi infiniti. E mi piace ricordare che nella versione originaria del 1865 a un certo punto Alice, mentre viaggia a Wonderland, si avventura, Carroll le fa pronunciare un pensiero che per me è un presagio. Alice a un certo punto dice: quando leggevo le favole mi immaginavo che quel genere di cose non erano mai successe e ora eccomi qui nel bel mezzo di una favola. When I read fairy tales, I fancy that those kind of things never happened, but now here I am in the middle of one. Si dovrebbe scrivere un libro su di me, si dovrebbe proprio. E quando diventerò grande lo scriverò io. Ma io sono diventata grande adesso. Quanti libri sono stati scritti di Alice e su Alice? Alice ha avuto ragione a sognare che ci fosse un libro su di lei, una narrazione su di lei, una narrazione infinita. L'ha sognato, l'ha desiderato, l'ha immaginato, ma come abbiamo detto anche questa mattina, è quasi impossibile pensare di poter separare la vita dal sogno. Sono la stessa cosa, coincidono, combaciano. E tutto questo a partire dal 1865, in questo caso. Alice si sveglia alla fine del racconto e ancora presagio. Ci dice alla sorella: I had such a curious dream. Ho fatto un sogno così curioso, e racconta tutte strane avventure alla sorella, che rimane seduta, pensando a tutte le meravigliose avventure della sorellina, ma a un certo punto anche lei comincia a sognare. E si immaginò come nel futuro questa sua sorellina sarebbe stata una donna adulta e come avrebbe conservato nei suoi anni maturi il cuore semplice della sua infanzia e come avrebbe accolto attorno a sé altri piccoli bambini e avrebbe reso accesi e trepidanti i loro occhietti con molte strane storie, forse anche con quel sogno del paese delle meraviglie di tanto tempo fa. Noi stiamo facendo questo. Le meravigliose narrazioni che attraversano le generazioni, le varie versioni di Alice. Forse We're All Mad Here potrebbe essere sostituita con We're All Childlike Here. Abbiamo tutti nel nostro cuore infantile, nonostante la crescita, conservata la possibilità di far sì che il paese delle meraviglie non sia solo sogno, ma sia vita, dia vita ai nostri sogni. E con questo io non posso altro che augurarvi tante amicizie Alice, Merry Christmas e ringraziarvi. Grazie. Grazie moltissimo a Monica Iacopino che è stata generosissima nel sostituire la professoressa Emilia Di Martino, Emilia Pieni, che è anche lei parte di questo MAD Party. Per impegni personali ci ha raggiunto solo ora, ma lei è qui con noi.
Mi dispiace moltissimo essere arrivata così tardi. Purtroppo, come Stefania sa, era una cosa che non era possibile rimandare, un appuntamento medico, però ce l'ho fatta e ci tenevo molto ad arrivare, anche se proprio alla fine, perché ci tenevo a salutarvi e ci tenevo ad abbracciare Stefania, che ogni anno veramente ci regala questo convegno beneaugurante, bellissimo, ricchissimo e beneaugurante.
Sì, è la prof Di Martino che a lingue nel nostro Ateneo viene ogni anno, quindi non poteva mancare. E, non so se Adriana Peliano è ancora collegata, non credo, vero? Sì.
I'm here.
Adriana, are you still there?
Yes. I don't understand everything, but I can understand what you are talking about. So I'm here.
So I think that now it's time to go. And yes, and have our tea.
Yeah.
It's tea time now. I don't know. Is there any question, any observation, anything you want to add?
Me?
Adriana?
I didn't see Ilaria's images. So
No. Well, we'll send you their presentation and also mine. Okay.
Yeah.
We thank you so much. We're not connected this morning. We are full of pictures and things students from our high school in art has created for this event. We have to send you so many pictures, photos, but if you have a look at the back, you have some of them inspired by Alice and fairy tales and fantasy fiction in a way. We'll send you more detailed photos, okay, of them.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if you want to say something, Emilia? No?
Sorry that I missed our guest speaker.
Next
time.
Next
time.
for sure.
Next.
Okay, so bye-bye. Thank you so much. Our conference is over with our Merry Christmas best wishes and the new year. Bye-bye, Adriana, and hoping you will come to Naples in a day, Italy, I don't know. It's your choice.
Yes, I have family in Italy, in Palermo.
Ah,
Okay, so let us know because we reach you.
Okay. See you. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
bye Adriana.
We thank also Mark, and the day is over.